So the first one is on critical technologies, and it's called Driving Europe's Competitiveness in the Digital Age, and it's moderated by Silvia Amaro Anker, the TV reporter from CNBC. Silvia, where are you? Please welcome on stage. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think you and I actually met at the big finance conference, right?
That's right.
And I thought it was just awesome the way that you moderated. So thank you so much for accepting to be here today and moderate with us. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Great.
Very kind. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see so many of you. First and foremost, I apologize for my voice. I hope you will be patient with me today. I was in Munich for the security conference and I got a cold. However, I'm sure that's not going to distract us from the very important conversation we're going to have here today. Today, as Cecilia highlighted, we'll be discussing this clash between innovation and regulation at a time when that clash is being intensified by geopolitics. And so, before we kick off the discussion, I would like to ask you to help me join welcoming onto the stage Rolf Schumann, the CDO of Schwarz Group, for some introductory remarks.
Yeah. First of all, also from my side, good morning and thank you for having me here and thank you for inviting me to your birthday party. So I really appreciate not going to work to go to a birthday party. And I do not want to repeat too much what we had said because I think everybody knows it. But what I would like to do is, and this is, I would say, the advantage when you work in the retail space. You know, I grew up as a tech guy at Siemens 10 years, then I was 20 years at SAP running as a CTO, founded a startup, failed with the startup, understood how not to fail in future, and ended up in retail. And the big difference between retail and all the other industries is when you have a margin of 2 to 3%, you have no time for nice words. You're extremely crisp and direct. Other people say blunt. And I decided to be very blunt today and not to repeat the things because I can tell you the reality is we are in the center of the storm. It's not the front line. We are in the center of the storm. It's a perfect storm. And if we fail today, we don't fail for us. We fail for our kids and the next generations. And I can tell you one thing. I'm also coming from Munich, and there couldn't be a better time to talk about digital sovereignty and independency. And everybody should get the memo now on the sofa, on the couch. And the memo is everybody understood data is the oil of the 21st century. We are saying this since 2012. But now we got it, at least since our friends from the new US legislation are criticizing the GDPR, criticizing the AI Act, criticizing the Cloud Act. And you know what this tells me? It tells me that we do something right, because I never saw a player attacked on a soccer field who did not have the ball. This is, at least one person got it, so thank you so much. Guys, what we do is right. It's only a question how we make it more pragmatic, full stop. Everything we do is right, and I'll tell you why. What happens with the data? Data is the fuel for AI, and AI is the future of our society. Get the big points together. And this is what we see right now. Why do we have the situation that people want to have our data? Why does Satya Nadella run around in Davos and says, you know what, your mid-market companies, the so-called Mittelstand, this is I can tell you, the mid and medium-sized businesses, this is the backbone of Europe. It's not the big ones, it's the mid-sized businesses. And why do they want to have their data? Because this data is the industry knowledge, the domain knowledge, the niche knowledge. And if we give the data away, we give the semantics away, we give the industry away. We do not only have talent we have to keep here, we have the talent and we have the knowledge and the industries and the hidden champions and put this together. What we see today, and this is what we have to keep in mind, if we don't get it right now, we will ruin, really, the backbone of our industry and the future for our kids. And I want to come to one point, and this is something you have to keep in mind. What we see here is a new colonial age. And if we do not want to become a colony of the US or China, who are leading digital, we should protect our data with the right acts. And why do I say this? Look, it's so simple. When you take 3 numbers, We have now February, everybody knows 3 years ago, the war in the Ukraine happens in February. And you know what's funny? In Germany, there was a huge debate about the dependency on Russian oil. Just to put this in perspective, 3 numbers. Number one, 55% of the German energy for the gas came from Russia. So the whole energy sector, 55% was gas. The rest was oil and other coal and whatever you can find. You must imagine we were totally freaking out in Germany because 55% in this energy sector came from Russia. Do you know how many percent of digital technologies, which is the DNA of our companies today and the future, comes from the US and China? It's just 90%. Do you get the memo? And now what they say, 90% dependency on digital. If you now also get the data, we got it. It's done. And I can tell you, digital dependency is the worst thing which can happen to anybody. If you do not understand this feeling, wait for your upcoming or your last discussion with Microsoft or negotiation about your license fees. We don't call this discussion or negotiation, we call this dictatorship. This is what you have to learn, and we learned this at the Schwarz Group, and this is what I can tell you. Get digital independent, and not against China, and not against the US. Do it to be free. Digital dependency leads not to be free. Digital independency, digital sovereignty leads to be free because it's a freedom of choice. And you know what? When you can always stand up at a table and leave the room, is the best precondition to build great partnerships. And what did we do at the Schwarz Group? First thing is, we realized we do not know what happens to our data. We invented the first sovereign European cloud, our own cloud. People were making jokes about us. Today, they understand it. We did the same for cybersecurity because you have to protect yourself in a sovereign way in your values. Third thing was AI. You need your large language model based on your values and data. The same for communication. And now we come to workspace. And we could not find a way with one supplier. So we found with Google a partner who is not European, but who accepted our values, who accepted that we want to own our own keys, the encryption keys, who accepted that the data has to be stored on our own cloud. And you guess what? It only happened because we were sovereign enough to have this eye-level conversation. And this is the future. So the future of Europe is, let's start becoming digital. And I have only 3 wishes for the policymakers. Do me a favor and support your own dog food. Eat your own dog food. Why should investors, what Peter said, come to here if we don't eat our own dog food? We have the assets here. Why don't we incentivize the use of European things? I know we don't like this term, make America first, make it great again. But I tell you one thing, what is bad with America first? You know, even the Biden legislation, they did it, they just didn't call it this way. We have to make the European stuff and make it first. And you know what? If we open it up for others, they have to live to our rules on the same strict level, GDPR. Why do we weaken up our values? Why do we weaken up our acts for others, but not for us? This is the first thing for the policymakers. We have so great solutions, just use them, and you know what? Suddenly investors will come here. The second thing for business people, just to let you know, digital sovereignty is not a tech topic. Don't delegate to your CDO or CIO and don't put them under your CFO to make sure that they don't waste money. This is your topic. Take it serious. If not, your company won't be there in 3 to 5 years. This sounds very hard. Why do I say 3 years? I come from a little country called Germany. And there we have demonstrated what you can do with the wrong decisions in your economy in 3 years. So believe me, 3 to 5 years sounds long, it could be critical. And last but not least, for the people. It's not tech, it's for your kids, for your next generations. I'm now getting in the age where I'm getting older. I see this because I have gray hairs. And I can tell you, I always make this joke at family at home. I saw more Christmas trees in my life than I will see for the rest of my life. But I've seen how fast the speed was accelerating in our technology world. I'm not sure if the next 2 or 3 decades we will have this prosperity in Europe if we don't change now. And with this, one last statement. What I learned in my whole business career and what I try to give to the next generation is there's a difference between discipline and excuses. Discipline makes the day really hard, but the future is super easy. And excuses make the day very easy, but the future hard. There is no more time for excuses. Thank you so much.
No time for excuses. So please join me in welcoming to the stage as well Minister Liisa Pakosta, Minister for Justice and Digital Affairs from Estonia. Thank you. The Hungarian Minister for European Affairs, János Boka. Roberto Viola, the Director General for DG Connect. And Jean-Marc Olegnier, the Chairman for EMA at Accenture. Good morning. Good morning, and thank you for being on stage with us today. I think we've done a lot of diagnosis. I think we have all recognized what are some of the problems that we are facing on this continent. So for the next couple of minutes, I would like to discuss solutions. What are the plans? How can we change this? However, I want to include you in this discussion. So we're actually having a poll running which asks, in your opinion, what is the biggest hurdle to the EU's competitiveness? You can choose from too much regulation, too little single market, lack of investment, and all of the above. And I will be mentioning those results later in the conversation. In the meantime, I'll focus on the stage and perhaps start with Minister Pakosta, perhaps to share your thoughts on, not just on the diagnosis, because I think we've done a lot of that already, but what would you say is the main priority to make sure that the continent is not continuing to lag behind?
Thank you, and thank you for the possibility to be here. If I say that it is for Europe to standardize the data, that is the fact that is crucial, but it's not very sexy. So I will add something more. I think we have to change our moral values, and let me explain this. If we, as politicians, we want to show to the public that we solve the problems. And as you said very rightly, it's very easy to do it when you solve it with control. A lot of regulation in Europe comes just from the very simple thing that somebody has a problem, somebody has an issue, and then the politicians say that, okay, we will make a regulation on that and we will control everything so that due to this control, through this control, everything will be much better. But this is a burden on somebody else. This is a burden on the companies. So it actually means that somebody has solved a problem of himself or herself on the cost of others, on the cost of companies, putting all the burden to the companies. And this is not right from a moral side. So this is something I would like to see in Europe to change, that we really trust the companies, that we really trust the innovation, that we really trust the possibilities out there, and the politicians also take the risks. And the answer to the voters would be that, yes, we have to do this, this, and this. I will explain it to you. I will put more effort on this. I will work more today, but we have to change it. And the change is not to put on more burden, to put on more control, but the change is more trust towards the companies.
Minister Boka, I would also like to get your thoughts on whether perhaps this is also a question of a mindset. We heard some participants late last night suggesting that, you know, we just think differently, we don't take so much risk in this continent. How can we also change that? It's not just about cutting regulation, but perhaps showing that this is a path forward.
I fully agree with you that we need a change in our mindset. During the Hungarian presidency of the Council, we worked very hard to bring together all member states and institutions in Budapest to adopt something that we now call the Budapest Declaration on Competitiveness. And this declaration is a very high level of abstraction, because the most important thing was at that time, and I think still is the case today, is not to pinpoint certain measures that would lead us to a more competitive environment, but to send the message that there is political consensus behind changing our mindset in order to create a more enabling environment for economic stakeholders in Europe to innovate and be more competitive. Now, the inherent problem or dilemma, I would say, is that for this we have the European Union and the European institutions that are by design regulatory authorities. So every time you have an issue that comes across, you start regulating, and not because you are evil or you don't know what's going on, but because that's the nature of European institutions. They are regulatory authorities by design. So how you can change this to create an enabling environment? I mean, those institutions cannot give something else but what is their nature. But by including economic stakeholders through consultation procedures, for example, and to ask them what they actually need to be more creative, to be more competitive, then this will be the way forward. The Budapest Declaration also calls for increased stakeholder consultations that is more transparent and more inclusive, and it calls on competitiveness checks besides deregulation. But I agree with you that it's not deregulation itself, it's not increased budgetary support for competitiveness in itself, it's not an issue of redistribution, it's an issue of an enabling environment, and we are on the way, but we are not there yet.
Roberto, what would you respond to that, and what would you say you are doing to address these problems? Because obviously the Commission is often blamed for being too regulatory, having too much bureaucracy. Is there a real effort within the executive arm of the EU to actually address this?
Thanks, and thanks very much to invite yet another year Roberto to this event. I must say the speech of Rolf made my day, because in a world that repeats as a litany certain things, it's difficult to be heard. And I think he made a powerful pitch to being practical, being done to a certain project, and follow it constantly with also showing the results. Now, to answer your question, it's easy. You simply open, what is the work program of the Commission, what has been, you read the speech of President von der Leyen in Paris, you know exactly what we will do, and we will do that. So there are no regulations in the next 5 years which will come from DG Connect. That is what is written in the work program. What we will do, it will make sure that our strengths, our people, our data will be unlocked by doing something that alone European companies cannot do, which is amassing enough capital to have the best computing resources in Europe, to have the best possible data lakes, in order to use AI in pharma, in manufacturing, in services, in hospitals, in new materials, because we have the best scientists, we have the most impressive data lakes when it comes, for instance, from healthcare, so we can do it. What today the state of our economy and individual companies cannot do is to actually finance what we call a gigafactory, so billions of investment in very large computing infrastructure. That we will do. That we will try together with our friends and colleagues of the EIB and other financing institutions to come with solutions together with the market and create also the enabling conditions to have clean data sets in every single sector. An initiative like the European Health Data Record, for instance, in the health data space, is not a regulation. It's an enabling system that allows the secondary use of data. We will do the same in the area of mobility. We will do the same in the area of basic science material. So this is for us really a big priority.
And I would like to come to you also to ask about the question of funding. Because, yes, we're hearing that the money is going to be available, there will be more investment, but when I look at the numbers from a European perspective, and I compare them with what, for instance, the United States announced with Stargate, huge gap. Are we actually at this race?
Let's not come back to complaining around Europe investment or whatever, because at the end of the day, there is many good things going on here. I think if you look at AI, first of all, on these investments on technology, the good news is that AI is probably part of the solution around growth and competitiveness of Europe. That's the way we look at it. When you look at macroeconomist guys, including our own analysis, it's forecasting a growth of GDP. When you look more at the macro results, what companies are saying, they see AI as game-changing in many parts of their business. So we see that. Now, to answer your question around where we are on two things, because I think we are mixing two debates. There is a debate around adoption of the technology, as you mentioned, by industry, to improve the competitiveness of the industry. And there is another question around how many solutions are locally relevant in Europe, built in Europe, sovereign in Europe. I think on the first debate around adoption, European companies are not falling behind that much. They are investing. 80% of the CEO in Europe are willing to increase investments on AI. It's roughly the same as in the US. Accenture is working mainly for big companies. When I look at our business in Europe versus US on adoption of AI in the different industries, manufacturing sector, automotive sector, pharma sector, there's not a lot of difference. Global companies headquartered in Europe know the game, and they're investing because they know that it's central to their competitiveness. So there's going to be a lot of private money floating in order to adopt. And today, when I look at the thousands of projects we are doing in Europe, 50% of them are very focused on productivity, but the rest is focused on growth. R&D, new product, customer experience, digital marketing, to capture more growth. So people get it. Now, on the second topic around innovation, yes, coming back to many of the discussion, when you look at technology for, like you have said, for 20 or 30 years, we miss a couple of waves in Europe. That's fair to say. We could have done better on some of the cloud or platform solutions. We all know that. But AI is game-changing. And if you look at the past, every time there was a kind of systemic change in technology, and AI is one of them, new players are emerging because of innovation. So yes, there is a race for us. Are we set up in order to be successful in that new wave? Hopefully we're going to learn from the mistake of the past. And there is many innovation play. Those foundation models, the game is not over. Open source, the game is not over. We talk about machine learning, Gen AI, but there are other things. Agentic AI, robotic AI are coming. So it's not a done deal. So let's not declare we lost the war before we engage the war.
Right.
There is a new war. So investment, but those two, we should not mix it up. Adoption of the technology, I believe that's where the value is. Today, the value is in NVIDIA, people say, or Microsoft, the name that has been. Yes, but the real value of AI is in the adoption. So we need to win that game. And yes, there is a value of innovation, product, and that's a new battlefield that we have to win this time and not do the same mistakes than some of the previous technology waves.
So let's talk about speed.
Speed, yes.
Yeah. Cecilia was also very clear in her remarks. We lack scale and we lack speed.
Yeah.
How do we make that now actually work for AI in a speedy fashion?
Look, that's an assumption. We like to complain in Europe. To be honest with you, you mentioned Munich. Yeah. I was at Davos. Many of you know, the Europeans in those global meetings are a bit too pessimistic. I believe the Americans today are probably too optimistic. So let's not be complaining about everything. Yeah, have we been doing everything right? No. But there is a new game coming. There is a massive opportunity to reshape the technology landscape. Let's not believe we are slow. We know that the single market can be improved. We all know that. We know that we lack a capital market in order to increase financial capacity. We know all of this. So I assume we are not that stupid, and we are going to make some decision in order to get there. Yes, we need some decision in order to get there, because if we don't change anything, probably what's happened in the past will happen again.
But that's exactly what I want. I want us to talk about decisions. Rolf, I'll come back to you. Tell us, therefore, what should be the main priority at this stage to make sure that we actually make ourselves visible in this race and we improve on speed and on scale.
I think the main thing we have to do is just do it. This is a simple way. And the problem is always that we say, oh, there is no money, we need subsidies. You know what? We never ask for subsidies. We asked for ourselves, where do we get the money to make things happen? And the thing is, you need a client zero, you need the customer zero. And the only ask I have, our governments should not use digital solutions which do not come from Europe if there is not an alternative. That's simply this. If there's a European alternative, use it. When you use it, people will adopt it. Look, here's the point. If a politician or public industry is using a certain solution, this gives all the companies, the smaller companies, the trust that this is something you can invest. This is the issue. I'm always making this stupid joke. 30 years ago, you never had been fired as a CIO if you were buying IBM. Today, people say you are not fired if you buy Microsoft. But the thing, people don't think about it. And the same happens here. If we start using our own solutions, what I mean with EDO and dog food, it will be adopted. And the funny thing is, where does the money come from? We have a market of 450 million people. There's enough money inside. So we always say, we need some more private equity. It's all garbage. It's wrong. We have enough money flow. Do you think the Schwarz Group asked for money or subsidies to build our own cloud? No. But we had two customers, Kaufland and Lidl, which are big enough that they financed this first solution. But the funny thing is, if you have a real customer, they make sure you are market competitive, they make sure that you're price competitive, and they make sure that you have a solution which works. So our attitude is wrong to always wait that somebody gives you money, and then when you have a good day, you start working or not, maybe it's weekend. And this is what I'm saying. Look, I learned one thing, and I really, if there would be a European passport, I would swap my German one against a European one, because when I heard that in Germany people work only 32.7 hours a week, and Swiss people who only make vacation work 34 hours, you start thinking about what's going wrong. And what's going wrong, we just don't do. And to be honest, there is money, there is the need requirement, just do it. And trust me, this is how we as the Schwarz Group became the largest retailer in Europe.
Just do it. I think I've heard that elsewhere. Minister Pacosta, I would also like to get your thoughts, and perhaps we can get the outcome of the poll, so we can also comment on it. I would like to understand also the role of geopolitics at this stage, and whether you, in your position, you're actually feeling that, you know, this is work that we need to have completed yesterday. When you hear, you know, some comments from the big tech players like Meta suggesting that the rules that we have in Europe, the fines that we apply in Europe should be considered as trade tariffs, are we actually mixing too many things at this stage? And are you worried about the pressure coming from geopolitics in the regulation space?
It depends how we define the pressure. I think we all feel this pressure. I actually, if I may, I disagree with my Hungarian colleague that EU institutions are not designed to be regulatory. EU is designed to be free. This is the essence of European Union, that we are free, we stand strong, we work, and we do the regulations that enable the innovation. That is our essence. That is our basic value. And that is why Estonia, an eastern border country of European Union, stands very strongly for freedom indeed. But we see it as a possibility. It has been said many times here today already. We see this geopolitical tension as a possibility. And let me explain it, how it actually works. So Digital Europe is connecting public sector and private sector. In Estonia, we live it. All our digital success is based on close cooperation between government and the private companies. The innovation, never comes from bureaucrats. The innovation comes from companies. All the digital success we have had in Estonia is based on the innovation by the private companies. And as you very rightly said, we have used our own companies, we have trusted our own companies, and we have built up an infrastructure that is extremely secure, that is scalable. Please use it. For example, our X-Road is already used by Finland, by Iceland, and by Ukraine. And it has stood strong. So this is a quality proof. Please use our companies, use our products, and scale it. We can do it. And now when I mentioned Ukraine, Ukraine is the hotspot of innovation in Europe. And I would like to underline, in Europe. The innovation done in Ukraine through these last 3 tragic years is much more than NATO could do in 20 years. So our Estonian companies collaborate with Ukrainian companies. This is a very good cooperation for more innovation. And that is what we all could see, do, and live for our freedoms. So this is a huge possibility, I would say, a huge possibility to cooperate more, to put this innovation together and to stand for our freedoms. And we have to do it all together. This is an unmistakable right way to go. And I can give a lot of examples how we have done it in Estonia. And it really is a success story. Thank you.
Minister Bock, I would like you to comment on that. And how would you also describe the pressure coming from the geopolitical scene to make sure that we drive for competitiveness on this continent?
Before I say that, I would react on the reaction if possible. I don't have an issue with ideas. I also believe that for those who are within the European Union and those countries who want to join, this stands for freedom and opportunities. But if I read all the surveys among European companies, they list the most important challenges for competitiveness and innovation: over-regulation and administrative burden. And when I say European Union, they usually say to me that European Union, from this respect, is part of the problem and not part of the solution. So I think that if the European Union would be part of the solution when it comes to over-regulation and administrative burden, then we would be further ahead. When it comes to geopolitics, I prefer a very pragmatic way. I mean, geopolitics is of course has a part when it's a clash of ideas and a clash of values. And we Europeans, I believe we have very strong values and we have very particular way how we look at the world. Now, if we look at geopolitical challenges, I think we as Europe, we are looking for resources for our economies. We are looking for market for our economies, and we are looking for an environment where these activities can be pursued in security and stability. And if these are the geopolitical challenges from an economic perspective. And if the European Union would look at ways to be a geopolitical player that helps the companies get the resources they need to be successful, helps the companies to get the markets they need, and helps the companies to create an environment where they can operate in a safety and security, then we are answering geopolitical challenges.
Roberto, I would like to share some questions that we're getting from the audience as well to make sure that we include them in the conversation. Someone asked, Europe has been very successful in driving global standards based on European innovation in connectivity. We've discussed that earlier. How can we strengthen standardization in other areas?
Well, doing exactly what we have done in the area of connectivity, which is to lead with our scientists, our engineers. And we do have areas where we are the best of the world in terms of, you take even AI, you know that the number of AI specialists or AI master degree up in Europe pro capita is higher than the United States. Maybe one could discuss about the concentration of excellences in given areas. But when you take a more continental view, we have a pool of well-educated talents. I think the success of the when it was the telecom time, which I do remember vividly, that shows my age, it's also the success of a much simpler way of doing standards, a little bit more organized. Then we toyed with the idea that there could be many different waves of doing standards, and things started to be fragmented. So in the area of trustworthy AI, in the area of data lakes and standards for data interoperability, Europe can lead, and will lead.
Minister Pakosta, you wanted to comment on this?
Yes, so first again, to make just the discussion more interesting, I will oppose my Hungarian colleague. If we look in Estonia, for example, so yeah, it's very easy to say, oh, it's the European Union regulations and for example, during the recent months, we reduced in Estonia the reporting lines by companies. It was 3,000, all by European Union regulations. But we reduced these 3,000 lines of reporting to 81. And we could do it internally in our country because we just use a little bit of AI. And we use once only principle. And we are going further with this. And we can do it fully compliable with European Union regulations. We see European Union regulations, most of it, as an enabler of innovation. We need regulations that allow us to work on the single market. And of course, with the AI Act, we would like to see more clear solutions there that we could go on further on. But we need some regulations that connect us all together to make our companies very quickly grow and very quickly to work on all these other member states. Having said that, the artificial intelligence for governments is extremely important to go on quickly with. In Estonia, we have an agenda already from spring to include AI to all our decision making, to offer even more quality to our citizens in even more effective way. We have already nearly 200 AI-based solutions offered by government, and we will go on with this. So it's not only private companies, but it's also the governments and the European Union institutions itself. And now I come back to what I started with, that data standardization is the key. Not a sexy thing, but it is a key.
We are running out of time, but before we finish our conversation, I would like to come back to you, Jean-Marc, and ask this question that someone in the audience also sent through. Shouldn't our digital sovereignty journey start by lowering risk in our supply chain via diversification, i.e. welcoming solutions produced by the BICs? Ultimately, I would like by the BICs. When we think about where we are with geopolitics and the developments in the US, in China, should we be looking at other parts of the world to strengthen, to find basically new allies?
But I can tell you that's what we do, because many of us in the room are operating in global business. Since a couple of years, we understand the world may not be completely the same anymore. So this topic of supply chain on logistics, on diversification of supply chain, resilience of supply chain, in order to be less dependent from different parts of the world is very much there. I think we go even further. Frankly, we go to some regionalization of supply chain and manufacturing as well right now. In a world where tariff seems to be a new thing that come back. We thought we forget about that, but it's coming back. So there are many things right now, if you operate in a global business, I'm sure you are confronted to that already, around looking at, when you are in a global business, you do not act on geopolitics. Geopolitics is the things of you guys, and we respect that's your job. Our job is to understand what does it mean for us to be resilient in a world like that. I think we learn probably with COVID what resilience means in a big shock. Now we learn about resilience in a geopolitics that may not be the same anymore. And this has a lot of implication, not only for AI and technology, but for many things that we are currently doing, because you're right. Our job is to serve customers, whatever you are, and to be resilient, whatever shock may happen. And we have not been short of shock in the last 3 years. And I can tell you, all of us has learned and make a lot of progress to see how we operate. I was very proud about the way business handled COVID. I think we are going to handle some of the numerous shocks we are seeing on the global economy, but there is one thing we know. It looks like the world is never going to be the same, so we are going to adjust. And we're going to adjust on this, we're going to adjust on many things, because that's our job.
Right, I would like to get one final thought from Rolf. We heard all the developments from DeepSeek. I would like to focus on that for a moment, because I think it was a watershed moment as we began this year when it came to AI. Did the announcements from DeepSeek made you more confident or more worried about where Europe is in the AI race?
I tell you, the whole announcement of DeepSeek made me totally disappointed, because the technology they used to have these great results was invented and published by a paper from a German company 8 months ago. The company Aleph Alpha came with this tokenized learning. They published a paper, but they are humble, they do not make this too public. They put it in academia. In December, Meta took this paper, and they made a much more broader report, but they had at least the honor and gave them the kudos that they did this 6 months ago. The results that you can train models in this area with a factor 10, less resources, we did in the Schwarz group and with Aleph Alpha last year. And then DeepSeek took the paper of Meta, they made it, but they made it loud. So what I learned is, we as Europeans, we had the talent. It was a combination of University of ETH Zurich. It was this Aleph Alpha startup, which was supported by SAP, by the Schwarz group, Bosch and so on. But we were just not loud and brave enough. And I can tell you, when I read this, the first thing I did is I called the communication agency and say, from now on, you publish every academic paper from this company in the industry press, because this is what we are. We are too humble. And just as a statement, and I like this, we are too negative, Americans are too positive. I always asked, how do you build a great team? And I said, the first thing you need is, you need an Israeli, because they often have a solution before we even think about it. Then you take a German who totally diminishes the solution, that is a total piece of crap, and they start engineering, but they will never overcome 95%. When the Germans are at 85%, the Americans oversell 120%, and then a Chinese comes and scales factor 10. So this is how we have to think. And to be very clear, we have so much diversity in Europe. Yeah. Just leverage it. I'm saying we need the EU and we need the regulations to define the rules, because when you have a lot of diversity, you need some foundation rules, and the rest happens by itself. And take DeepSeek, I know I'm now totally destroyed DeepSeek, and the only positive thing was that NVIDIA's market cap went down to a normal level. But the thing is, we have this here, we had it here, we just didn't use it. So we need a German instead of just do it because this came from Nike. But again, we are discounted, we don't have money for marketing companies, so we steal it. But hey, let's get up and work. Take a term like this, but this is what it is.
And on that inspirational note, thank you. Thank you to Rolf Schumann, CDO of Schwarz, Minister Lisa Pacosta from Estonia, Minister Bokke from Hungary, Robert Viola from DG Connect, and Jean-Marc Olegny. Thank you very much, and I hope the conversations will continue throughout the day. Thank you.